Howdy there folks, this is Lapidary Dave, and right now I'm going to show you folks how I go about dopping stones. Dopping is when you adhere stones to a stick, a dowel, or some kind of handle. I usually dop for smaller pieces that are a little uncomfortable for me to hold, or next to nearly impossible to hold against the wheel without hurting myself or roughing up my skin. I'll be using green dopping wax. Green dopping wax, I believe, is the lowest temperature wax out of the traditional dopping wax. There is a red and a black that I believe has a higher melting temperature. I really enjoy dopping for speed, control, and comfort. I don't always dop smaller pieces. These pieces of turquoise I got at the Buena Vista Gemshow last year. I just found them on my desk in a little bag. Most of these are unstabilized. As you can see here, I don't always dop smaller pieces. I also dop larger pieces, again for the speed, comfort, and control. I can work stones a lot faster when they're dopped than when I cut them with my hands. It's a nice little piece of agate here. Also, it helps me to keep track of what I've worked and what I haven't worked when they're dopped. They're a little bit harder to lose. It's a nice little piece of stick agate, I believe. I have no idea what this stuff is. All of these pieces here are worked to 280 grit. All of the pieces on the far right are still rough and waiting to be hogged out. I don't always dop flat stones. It might be a little tough to see here, but this piece of chrysocolla is actually kind of convex and concave in places. It's kind of wobbly. It's the natural cleavage of the stone that I dopped it to. The dop stick adheres pretty well to stones that aren't perfectly flat. However, you do have to take a little bit more care to make sure that your dopping stick is straight up and down with the stone if you're not going to be dopping flat pieces. This is my dopping pot. I've dopped thousands of pieces with it since I've got it maybe 3 or 4 years ago at the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show when it came with my Johnson Brothers 6-inch 6-wheel machine. I will be dopping using little pieces of bamboo dowels that I have, but I also use regular pieces of wood and exotic woods, whatever we have laying around in the Kish wood shop. I cut these up to make little dowels to adhere to. Some people often use nails or screws when they're dopping. I don't always use nails and screws because when I polish with the nails and screws, I feel like it can be a little bit more dangerous if it were to fly off or fly around somewhere. Some people use reusable dopping sticks that aren't screws and nails, like these 2 pieces of aluminum. I don't know what they were made for, but I see these exact things being sold as reusable dop sticks. Some people also dop using super glue, like this piece of Riccolite serpentine, and I believe that's ocean jasper from Madagascar. Super glue is pretty cool, but most folks use a solvent to get the stones off the stick, which I usually don't ever do and haven't done in the past. So the wax takes a little bit of time to heat up or will get cool too fast and won't adhere the stone very well. Around the rim of the dop pot is a heating plate that you actually have to heat the stone up on before you try to dop. If you don't heat up the stone, it might not work at all. I try not to work more than 3 pieces at a time because I can knock the stones inside of the wax and it gets really messy or ruined. You don't want to leave the stone on the hot plate too long because it can get too hot, and with particular stones that might be stabilized or fragile, it can actually break or ruin the pieces. So this wax is just hot enough to burn my fingers, so I try to work pretty carefully. Also, the rim around the dop pot is hot enough to burn my fingers. I hate getting burnt. I'm a professional musician, and I really do not enjoy playing with blisters. After the stick has picked up some wax, I work it around the stick to make sure that it's going to hold on to the stick well enough. And then I make sure that it's on the stone well enough. I'm almost never concerned if the wax comes over the side because I will be working the sides of the stone. But I try not to get the wax into any creases or cracks of the stone on the side that won't be removed with my lapidary machine. Sometimes it can be difficult to get the wax out of certain spots of the stone that have pits and pocks. I'll be using a nail for this piece of unstabilized turquoise. I'm not sure what it is. It might be Manasseh. Sometimes you actually have to heat up the metal dopping stick if you use nails, screws, or other proprietary metal dopping sticks. Or the wax won't adhere to the metal dopping stick at all. This was definitely the case with the screw that I will be using. I dropped the screw in there, and the dopping wax is hot enough to burn my fingers, so I stumbled a bit to get it out. This happens a lot to me, so I left it in the video. The fact that the screw has little ribs, the threads I guess, kinda keeps the wax on the dopping stick a little bit better if I were to bring the wax down and hug the ribs or threads of the screw. Sometimes while working stones with dopping sticks, they can just pop right off of the stick, leaving all the wax on the stone, which is a big pain. I'd rather the stone pop off the stick and leave all the wax on the stick, screw, or nail, or whatever. So I'm actually wrapping the wax around the threads here. I never thought of it until making this video, but I guess that's a pretty cool part of using a screw. This video would be a little too long if I sat around and dopped every single piece, so I did that off camera. All the rest of the pieces of turquoise, I mean. These are the 3 that I will be cutting and showing you folks while I cut. The rest I'll do off camera. Little sweeties. All of these aren't Manasseh. It's a variety. I think some of these are Kingman, some of these are Cerritos turquoise. And there's one really nice red piece of spider web. Putting 3 more on the hot plate. Alrighty, the pieces are nice and dry and hardened and ready to get cut. Really quick, I want to show you this piece of malachite with chrysocolla. This is about the smallest I would ever feel comfortable working, so you can see this piece on the right is the average size that I'm dopping right now. Just way too small for me to work comfortably. Alrighty folks, there you go. As you can see, I worked every single piece. All of this maybe took less than an hour because I dopped these stones. If I was going to sit around and try to use my fingers to work this, it would have taken maybe 10 times as long. There's a few different ways to dop stones. Some folks use alcohol lanterns. Some folks, like Ruben Medina behind the Kachina, actually use a lighter just to drip the wax onto the stone and then onto a stick. These are my collection of broken and chipped pieces that I will one day work like those pieces that I got from the Buena Vista Gemshow. Some good stuff in here. No point of throwing it away. Everything that's too small to be dopped, like these little pieces, I will use for chip inlay. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I had a good time talking about dop pots and such. These dop pots are pretty affordable. I think I see them being sold for around $30, give or take. I will probably make a video sometime soon on the red and black wax, but in the meantime, I love you. This is Lapidary Dave. Talk to you soon.